Picture this. You're getting ready for a night out in 1850s London. You dust your face with lead powder, dab some arsenic on your cheeks for that healthy glow, drop belladonna in your eyes to make them sparkle, and cinch your waist so tight you can barely breathe. Congratulations, you're now the hottest corpse at the ball. Welcome to Victorian beauty standards, where looking good literally required poisoning yourself. And I mean literally, not figuratively literally. We're talking about an era where women's skincare routines doubled as a chemistry experiment gone wrong. Today we're diving into the absolutely unhinged world of 19th century beauty culture, where the line between makeup and murder weapon was thinner than a Victorian woman's waist after a proper corset fitting. So, what exactly were Victorian women trying to achieve with their daily dose of toxins? Well, buckle up, because these beauty standards were more specific than a Starbucks order. First, pale skin. Not just pale, mind you, but translucent, almost corpse-like pallor. Think vampire chic, but make it fashion. The goal was to look like you'd never seen sunlight in your life, which honestly wasn't that far from reality for most upper-class women who spent their days indoors doing, well, whatever Victorian ladies did. Needlepoint? Fainting practice? This obsession with paleness wasn't just vanity, it was class warfare. Having a tan meant you worked outside, which meant you were poor, which meant you were basically invisible to polite society. So naturally, women went to extreme lengths to maintain that delicate, sickly appearance that screamed, "I have never done manual labor in my life." But here's where it gets weird. While they wanted to look pale and fragile, they also needed rosy cheeks and bright, sparkling eyes. So you had to look dead, but also alive. Victorian beauty standards were basically asking women to achieve the impossible. Be a beautiful zombie. And let's not forget the waist situation. We're talking about corsets tightened to achieve waists measuring 16 to 18 inches. For context, that's roughly the circumference of my neck. Victorian women were literally reshaping their internal organs for fashion. Your ribcage? Optional. Your ability to breathe properly? Overrated. The pressure to meet these standards was intense. Marriage prospects, social standing, your entire future basically depended on achieving this very specific look. No pressure though. Now here's where things get properly horrifying. To achieve these beauty standards, Victorian women turned to what can only be described as a poisoner's cookbook. Let's start with the foundation. Literally, Victorian face powder was made with white lead. You know, that famously safe substance that definitely doesn't cause brain damage, kidney failure, and death. But hey, it gave you that coveted pale complexion, so worth it, right? The most popular brand was called Venetian Ceruse, which sounds fancy, but was basically just lead carbonate mixed with vinegar. For those rosy cheeks, Victorian women turned to arsenic. Yes, that arsenic. The one that's literally famous for being poison. They would eat arsenic wafers or apply arsenic-based rouge to their cheeks. Some women even took arsenic internally as a complexion enhancer, because apparently the Victorian approach to skincare was, what doesn't kill you makes you prettier. But wait, there's more. To get rid of freckles and age spots, they used mercury-based creams. Mercury, you know, that stuff that makes you go insane. The same mercury that turned hat makers mad, hence the phrase mad as a hatter. Victorian women were literally applying insanity cream to their faces. And for those bright, sparkling eyes, belladonna drops. Belladonna, which literally means beautiful woman in Italian, is also known as deadly nightshade. It's a plant so poisonous that even touching it can be dangerous. But Victorian women were dropping it directly into their eyes to dilate their pupils and create that wide-eyed, doe-like appearance. Here's the thing that really gets me. These weren't bootleg, back-alley cosmetics. These were mainstream products sold in respectable shops by respectable vendors. So, what happened when you spent years poisoning yourself in the name of beauty? Well, spoiler alert, nothing good. But here's the really insane part. Even when women started getting sick, even when they connected the dots between their beauty routines and their declining health, many of them kept using these products. The social pressure to maintain their appearance was so intense that they were willing to literally die for it. The corset situation wasn't much better. Tight lacing caused what doctors called corset liver, which is when your internal organs get so compressed they can't function properly. Women regularly fainted from lack of oxygen, developed digestive issues, and in extreme cases, their ribs would actually puncture their organs. There are documented cases of women dying from corset-related injuries, including one woman whose corset stays pierced her heart. Imagine explaining that to the insurance company. So, when did people finally start to realize that maybe, just maybe, poisoning yourself for beauty wasn't the best idea? The awakening was gradual and came from multiple directions. First, advances in chemistry and medicine started to reveal exactly how toxic these substances were. By the 1860s and 1870s, scientists were beginning to understand the connection between heavy metals and health problems. The press started to take notice too. Newspapers began reporting on beauty-related deaths and illnesses. The rise of the women's suffrage movement also played a role. As women began demanding political rights and social equality, some began to reject the extreme beauty standards that were literally killing them. By the 1880s, safer alternatives started to appear. Zinc oxide replaced lead in face powders. Natural plant-based dyes replaced arsenic in rouge. The beauty industry slowly, very slowly, started to prioritize not killing their customers. But let's be real here. The transition wasn't because the industry suddenly grew a conscience. It was because dead customers don't make repeat purchases, and word was getting out that their products were actually lethal. But before we get too smug about how much smarter we are today, let's remember that we live in an era of Brazilian butt lifts, extreme dieting, and cosmetic procedures with their own risks. We've traded arsenic for Botox and corsets for waist trainers, but the fundamental drive to achieve an impossible beauty standard? That's still alive and well.